Welcome to episode 354 of the Everblack podcast. On this episode, James Schmidt talks to ERIK DANIELSSON from WATAIN, who will be in the country next month in support of their latest album, Trident Wolf Eclipse. WATAIN's Southern Siege Hell Tour kicks off on the 22nd of February in Melbourne at Max Watts, then the 23rd of February in Brisbane at the Crowbar, 24th of February in Sydney at the Factory, and then they head over to New Zealand for the 26th of February in Wellington at Valhalla, and the 27th of February in Auckland at Galatos. Tickets are on sale now through www.soundworkstouring.com. Get them now. They put on one hell of a show. They've been here a few times, and it's just unbelievable. So make sure you go see the Black Metal Masters while they're in the country next month. Alright, before we go into James's chat with ERIK, we just have to mention that this episode is brought to you by Blacklight Art Design, who are our go-to for all our screen printing needs. They've done all our hats and shirts for Everblack Media, and they've got such a quick turnaround. I highly recommend checking these guys out. Check them out at www.blacklightad.com.au. And the show is also brought to you by our good friends at RW Promotion, who are the best in the biz when it comes to stickers, flyers, banners, badges, and all the other promo you need for your band or business. Go check them out at www.rwpromotion.com.au and give them a shout out. Alright, so here is episode 354 of the Everblack podcast with ERIK DANIELSSON from WATAIN. Enjoy.
G'day, ERIK. James here. How you doing, mate?
Good day. I'm good, James. I'm good.
How are things are you in Sweden at the moment?
I'm in Sweden at the moment. I'm actually the only one in the band who's in Sweden at the moment. The other guys have already taken off to South America. So we're working on stage show stuff. So I'm actually painting a backdrop while I'm talking to you.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's these last minute preparations as always. The other guys are in South America working on some steel construction stuff for the stage, and yeah, it's close to kick off.
Oh, fantastic. So you're going directly from a Swedish winter right into a southern summer?
That's right. So we finished the last touring for 2018 in late November, and got back home in time for the Swedish winter to arrive. So it's pretty good to just soak up some of that, typical northern desolation that comes with the winter, and kind of absorb all of that before heading out on this what's becoming actually the longest tour we've ever done in 20 years.
Certainly soak up as much of the cold as you can, because by the time you get here, it's going to be pretty gross.
So I hear. But is it like, I heard the worst part is almost now, or?
No, by February it's usually pretty much set into proper nasty heat. And particularly once you get to Queensland, you've got the humidity as well, which is just unpleasant.
Sweet. Well, from one thing to another. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're used to kind of adapting to most situations now. And in terms of heat, I mean, all of last year we had a pretty extensive pyro show with us on tour. So as far as performing in heat goes, that's that's something that I actually become like I don't know, it's more uncomfortable to perform in normal temperature now somehow. You really get used to it, and it does something to you. Performing this kind of music and having actually, whatever that is intense, including heat around you, is I would say it's kind of beneficial for what we do on stage. So.
It helps build the atmosphere, doesn't it? And
It does. It does. It creates this kind of helpless fucking. It's like you got nowhere to go, so you better just cope with it, and instead of letting it defeat you, kind of allowing it to give you something in return instead. And I think we figured out a few ways to do that. So.
Well, and also considering the smell that comes off your stage with all of the props and the animal blood and everything like that, I'd say it smelled pretty ripe by the end of the very hot set.
Yeah, I mean, probably to most other people, it's a very unusual thing. I think for us, having used these things on stage for quite a few years now, I mean, they certainly put you in a mood, but at the same time, it's not that you react strongly every time. It's not that I react strongly every time I go on stage because of the smell. It's something that is just there. And also it's, I mean, I know that there's all these stories about how a WATAIN show smells and so on, but it varies a lot as well. I mean, sometimes we use, older blood if we feel that it's that kind of an atmosphere at a venue where, it could benefit from the kind of energies that I've seen come from, using, rotten blood, while, a lot of other times it's just filled with a more like scorching, like scorched flesh kind of smell, or even incense. The bottom line is, James, that it's we like to employ smell in the shows, in one way or another.
Yeah,
and they're not always typically unpleasant. I mean, the smell of fire and the smell of incense and so on, they're typical ceremonial ingredients that have been a part of, human ceremonial practice for hundreds of years for a reason. So yeah, I think it comes down more to actually employing the sense of smell rather than, making it super nasty just for the fuck of it.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, it should be interesting anyway. I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring. So, it's been a year now since Trident Wolf Eclipse came out. So
that's right.
The album's a much more straightforward black metal album than its predecessor, The Wild Hunt, and it manages to contain a lot of the elements that made The Wild Hunt a lot more of a varied album. How did you go about sort of putting those two elements of what WATAIN are about together and sort of moving forward with your progression musically?
Well, I think, WATAIN to me has always been, I mean, we started out as a pretty, young, angry, fucking full-on black metal band, right? Very much adhering to the traditions of black metal and very, very keen on kind of upholding that legacy of the older bands that we looked up to, Bathory, Dissection, Mayhem, and so on. But when we found our own sound, which took a few years, of course, like it does for every band, I mean, I think what kind of made it into our sound was that combination between something quite like sacred and epic and sublime, combined with this like kind of traditional, raw, primitive, savage, death black metal attitude, right? So I think both of those sides have a very natural part in WATAIN, and I think that on all the albums up to The Wild Hunt, they were kind of just intermingled, while Wild Hunt was maybe focused more on one part and Trident Wolf Eclipse on another. So I think, I don't know, the bottom line is that it has to be a genuine form of expression. It cannot be forced. And this time, this was just what we wanted to do. This is what we felt like. We were keen on, just exploring more of that, savage side of the band, the more like the one that has to relate more to predatory instinct or, violent encounters or, wild fucking energy. The stuff that, makes you clench your fist and bang your head or, all of that. So it's, I think it was just what felt relevant at the time, and how to bring it forward. I mean, I by now, we have proven, and especially maybe with Wild Hunt, we've proven to a lot of people that we are a band that will do whatever the fuck we feel like, that was a very liberating point in our history as a band in a way, And then it was fun to move from that to just a much more straightforward, pure black metal record. So I don't know, dude, again, you got to do what you feel like and take it from there.
Well, I did notice. I was giving it another good listen to today through a really high end set of headphones, and buried in the mix there, you've got a lot of melody really hiding a long way back in the mix that if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss. I've noticed that about a lot of bands from Scandinavia tend to hide melody within brutality, and that mixed with the way that you seem to have recorded this has given it that real violence, but there's
Yeah,
something underneath.
sure, sure. No, I love working like that, and yeah, I mean, I as a composer, as a music writer, I tend to lean a lot on melody and riff. You know, for me, it's always like where I start off, because I think that's the easiest way to I don't know, find a atmosphere or an emotion that you want to work with. You know, a melody often makes you relate to, and that's where we usually start off, and then you know, you take it from there, and perhaps that feeling also encourages, you know, this a really violent raw approach or whatever, and yeah, then the melody just stays a bit more in the background, but the melody is definitely like it's an integral part of the compositions. It always has been with WATAIN, absolutely.
Now, it's what I was also sort of looking at with this is a lot of metal bands, even black metal bands these days, are going for really polished production, whereas you guys stepped back from that and once again picking up the mantle of true, I suppose in inverted commas, true black metal, and having both it's both a raw sound, but it's also well produced, if you know what I mean. It sounds
Sure.
like a real band. It doesn't sound like it's all sort of studio wizardry.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that's important to keep in mind is that the guy who we used to record all our albums since the first 7-inch that we did back in '99, that guy, Tora, he's also our live sound guy, right?
Yeah.
So front of house guy. So I think, you know, working, and he has been for the past, I'd say 10 years or so. So I think that, you know, having him doing live sound for us also, it kind of it made it easier to capture that, you know, raw and primal feel of a live show. And I think that was something we were a bit interested in exploring a bit more in the studio now. Like, I mean, since obviously we're working more with him live than in the studio, time-wise now. So it's a kind of a natural outcome of that, I guess. That and of course that the songs this time, or the whole album, just came out closer to our initial vision with a rawer sound and with a more traditional, like old school black death metal sound. We were listening a lot to a lot of old, like early 90s Swedish death metal as well, you know, where everything is like totally over distorted, like the first Dismember albums, for example, or stuff like that, where people simply didn't give a fuck about anything polished at all, you know. but with all that being said, James, it's I mean, we're all huge fans of well produced metal as well, or, you know, cleaner sounding stuff as well. I mean, like Dissection, who is obviously one of our, you know, biggest inspirations in many ways. I mean, they always had a super good sound on the recording. So yeah, I mean, the production must be a result of you know what it is you want to say. And this time a raw and violent production simply made the trick, you know.
Absolutely. So it's been a few years since you've been last out here, and this being your first full headline show in Australia. So before when you first came out with the Soundwave, now defunct Soundwave Festival, caught you at that fantastic gig. But once again, big festival, so you didn't really get time to do your own full show. And then again with Behemoth, which was a pretty fantastic show as well. So, having seen you supporting other bands, what are we going to be getting from a WATAIN headlining show this time round?
I don't know really how different it will be in terms of the show. I mean, the downside of touring the other side of the world is that obviously, you cannot bring a truckload of pyro or anything. We fly with everything that we have on stage, so it's still a kind of compressed version of the WATAIN experience. But to me, I mean, I know a lot of Europeans that have seen us many times with the full show here, which is pretty grandiose and something that Venom would have been envious of in the 80s. but I know a lot of Europeans that are really envious of people who get to see us with a much more compressed in a show in a kind of more intimate setting, so to say. So I think it's going to be. There's definitely going to be show elements, but mainly we'll focus a lot on covering the entire history of the band, set list wise, and just focusing very much on the energy and the power of the songs and the spirits of the songs, really, and let them come alive through us. And that's a challenge. I mean, like I said, we toured all of last year. We toured with full production, and you tend to lean on that in the end. It becomes a kind of, it almost becomes safe, as ironic as it sounds with the stage show like the one we have. But it's still, I don't know. To me, I really look forward to it. And just doing a bit more like Motorhead-ish, compressed shows in a way.
Well, it'll be certainly in our faces, particularly at the Brisbane venue, the Crowbar, which has very little room between the band and the audience.
Yeah. So I heard. We actually, for Brisbane, we actually got a few pretty cool things lined up. We're working a lot on the stage show ourselves, like I said in the beginning, but we also collaborate a lot with our fan club, the WATAIN Disciples, and they are very driven people, very creative people that we have some projects. Live show projects together with as well, and especially in Brisbane actually. So that's going to be a special one.
Well, no doubt I'll see you there. Unfortunately, it looks like we've run out of time.
So yeah, that's the way it goes, man.
Thank you very much for being on the Everblack podcast.
Absolutely, please come up and say hi, man.
I certainly will, mate. Thank you very much for the interview. Looking forward to seeing you. Good luck in South America, mate.
Likewise, James. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.